You bring up a really interesting point over the next 6 weeks, and obviously Trump is far and away the front runner. These four are really vying for number two. So, who do you think the stakes are highest for then? Who has the most to lose? Do you think it's DeSantis?
I think Ron DeSantis has the most to lose if he does poorly in Iowa, limps into New Hampshire, does poorly in New Hampshire. I think he has the most to lose because, again, he's still the elected governor of the state of Florida with a lot of track ahead of him to do things in one of the most important melting pots in politics in America. Chris Christie he has nothing to lose. It's like all in. And I think Vivek Ramaswamy has already won because these people can somewhat pronounce his name and understand where he's coming from. It's Nikki Haley. Now she has a decision to make, Brittany, and it's an interesting one. This hypothetically say she does decently in Iowa, maybe even more than decently, does really well in New Hampshire, even without winning. She goes into South Carolina. She's second in South Carolina. Does she go all in with a lot of money now already starting to come behind her? Does she go all in? Meaning, will she do anything it takes to try to win the nomination? And the reason I say that is she has another option ultimately, and so does the former president if he's the presidential nominee, and that's Nikki Haley on the ticket, not as number one, but as number two, with Donald Trump, who, if he were to succeed with Nikki Haley, is a lame duck president on day one. So she would be arguably potentially one of the most powerful vice presidents in the history of the country. So does she go all in? I think she's holding those cards close to the vest, so to speak. Don't know where that goes yet. I think she wants to see how this plays out. Clearly, she's got momentum. Clearly, she's got more and more money, Brittany, coming behind her, which allows her to do things she wasn't able to do even 4 to 6 weeks ago in terms of ground operation, in terms of television advertising. But still, the big boy, Donald Trump, is still where he began. And if you look in South Carolina, he's up 20 points in South Carolina. He's up about 25 points in New Hampshire. Even if you start collapsing the contenders, he's still going to be everything the contenders can handle in terms of actually defeating him in a primary contest.
Let's talk about the big boy as you described, and that is Donald Trump. The Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Governor Ron DeSantis, they were more tepid in their criticisms of the former president. Governor Chris Christie went all in. He called him Voldemort, amongst other things. He also said that his colleagues on stage were, quote, afraid to offend Donald Trump. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so patently obvious. Everyone's walking on eggshells, other than Chris. Chris, his reputation, even if you take away the 3 years that he was somewhat wildly supportive of Donald Trump, his reputation is for kind of telling it like it is, whether you like it or not. And I think people find that kind of reality, whether they buy it or not, they feel that kind of approach is attractive, right? So I think it's obvious why he went that way. The other three are thinking, how can I possibly go full bore at the former president without collateral damage? Because a big part of the base that may be with Trump right now, it could very easily be persuaded as a fallback to go with Nikki or to go with Ron DeSantis, are nervous about more directly and savagely going at the former president. Nikki Haley, I thought took another step in that direction when she said, look, in terms of China, I agree with the trade policies that Donald Trump forged in terms of China, but everything else, no. She went after fentanyl in particular and other things she thinks he actually failed on. So she took another step without necessarily going all in against Trump, but anyone trying to do that does that at their own peril.